I cannot emphasize enough how, despite its relatively unfamiliar elements, many of which have been incorporated into Western practice, there's no highly developed theater form anywhere in the non-Western world whose history and practices align so closely with conventional Western theater as does Kabuki. By the time it achieved maturity in the early 18th century, Kabuki was a firmly established institution, commercially managed in permanently established theaters in urban entertainment districts, albeit in proximity to the equally highly organized brothel quarters. It employed companies of annually contracted actors who specialized in particular role types for seasons that began every year in the 11th month. Those season-opening productions, called kaomise, were hugely popular events designed to introduce each theater's new lineup of performers. Many important plays were premiered during them. Meanwhile, the physical theaters continued to develop from their rough, no-theater-like beginnings into well-crafted wooden structures with features that, while unique to Kabuki, were not really that much different from Western theaters of the time. Today's theaters are among the most comfortable, modern, technically well-equipped venues anywhere. Some, like the Kabuki-za, with around 2,600 seats, may be larger than most Broadway theaters. While they may sometimes offer some non-Kabuki presentations, they're designed for the needs of Kabuki performance, but they also have exquisite patron facilities, including luxurious lobbies, restaurants, and so forth. Otherwise, they may reflect in buildings made of concrete, steel, and glass the basic features of the wooden theaters in use before the introduction of Western innovations in the late 19th century. Let's see what a standard Kabuki theater looks like. Here's a cutaway rendering of what a 19th century theater looked like. Just as today, the theater is rectangular with a wide stage relative to its auditorium. The Kabuki-za stage is around 90 feet wide, with a low proscenium of around 20 feet high, in a theater around only 60 feet deep. There are audience galleries, sajiki, along the sides, and a balcony is at the rear. The Kabuki-za has a mezzanine and a balcony, yet with another area above that for people paying to see only a single act. A revolving disc, a mawari butai, is built into the stage. Through much of the 19th century, there was a forestage thrusting into the auditorium. The seating, as per Japanese custom, was not in chairs, but on the floor, as in this image from 1872, with a pit area fitted with boxed-in cubicles called mas, M-A-S-U. The same system is intact at the old Kanemaru-za in Shikoku. Each holds about 5 or 6 people. People reach their seats by walking along the narrow planks crisscrossing the auditorium. The planks were also used for refreshment hawkers during the shows, which could last from dawn to dusk. Although once unthinkable, it's no longer rare for Western theater to present action in the aisles of proscenium theaters, especially for entrances and exits. Occasionally, a musical or revue will include a runway jutting partly into the auditorium to bring one or more performers closer to the audience. Such situations, which probably have their origins in Kabuki, are somewhat different from the way Kabuki itself thrusts actors into the midst of its audience. You can see the Hanamichi, which is the runway in the Kabuki, in this image, where the play Shibaraku is being performed, and the actor is close to the audience. What happens on the Hanamichi is not the same as acting in the aisles or on the runway extending from the stage into the audience during a musical. In its authentic form, it is a wooden platform situated on the audience's left that runs from the rear of the house to the stage on a level that requires the spectators to look up at the actors, who are on the same level as the stage proper. As seen here, actors on the Hanamichi have audience members on either side, making the actors as close as possible to those people while still removed from them by their slightly elevated positions. While it's used for all major entrances and exits, the Hanamichi typically is also a stage on which important acting sequences are performed, with stars isolated by their placement on its narrow 5-foot wide platform at a point called the Shichisan, or the 7-3, because it was originally located 7/10 of the way from the back of the house to the stage. Here, an actor will pose, dance, or engage in brief dialogue sequences with a partner or even with those on the regular stage. The spot is also marked by a small elevator trap, the suppon. Those who use it are almost always somehow wizards, ghosts, or even animals. A famous example is in the play Meiboku Sendai Hagi. A wizard has transformed himself into a rat, usually played by a small actor in a gray rat suit. We can examine the action as it might have looked a couple of hundred years ago in these images created by a modern artist. To the left, the backstage crew is changing the set as the revolving stage begins moving. An actor at center on the main stage poses, having just been foiled by a large rat who has stolen a precious scroll and dived into the Hanamichi trap at the bottom center, where his transformed self is seen rising from it. This transformed person is the villainous wizard, dressed in rodent gray, who bears the stolen scroll. I have time to mention only two more Hanamichi uses. One is for a vigorous bounding exit performed by bold heroes and called roppo, implying that the actor's arm and body movements are going in 6 directions. A good example is the flying roppo in the dance drama Kanjin Cho, when the heroic priest Benkei, having accomplished a feat of daring boldness, steps onto the runway as the curtain closes behind him. He looks off into the distance and, adjusting the long pole he carries, begins to leap from foot to foot, the right arm in sync with the right foot, the left with the left, as he hurtles off into the curtained room at the end of the Hanamichi. There are several roppo variations depending on who the character is. The other example uses 2 Hanamichi. The second, now installed only for particular plays, since its use eliminates a number of expensive seats. In this modern rendering of the play Nozaki Mura, as it looked in the 19th century, a pair of lovers depart simultaneously from a farmhouse, the young woman in a boat and the young man in a palanquin, each on their own Hanamichi. Her being on the river is represented by a water-painted ground cloth. He, for his part, is on the riverbank. Looking on at the right are the characters they're leaving behind. Kabuki is generally brightly colored and lit, although there are darker scenes in dingy homes, like this one in the great ghost play Yotsuya Kaidan, or at night at dreary places like riverside embankments in the same play. Scenery can be eye-poppingly spectacular, as in Meiboku Sendai Hagi, or almost naturalistic, as in the soba shop scene of Now Samurai, with action taking place indoors or out, and often both at the same time. As this last example reveals, there's a host of scenic conventions, which means that regardless of where a scene is set, the placement of the scenic units and their relative sizes are all strictly regulated. The same essential units are seen in multiple environments, but each set is unique to the play it's used for, thus even with minor differences from one production to another being accounted for. Anyone familiar with Kabuki can look at a picture and know exactly which play it represents. One final scenic device should quickly be mentioned. This is the elevator trap, a small example being the one we've seen on the Hanamichi. The traps are called seti, and there are several used for raising both actors and sets. The largest can raise an entire temple setting like the one seen here in Sanmon Gosan no Kiri,